What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and well, as y'all know, it is Wednesday, which means a new summit is now live, and for this week we have the Scandinaviah Flick. In Platinum we have the Nitro Chemist Boosted, which I do think is going to be a pretty good set to have. Any Nitro Chemist set is probably going to be really good on pretty much every vehicle class on the game, and having that for the drag race class I think is going to be really awesome as well. Unfortunately though, I think those two affixed stats are going to need to be changed because I don't really see a point of having them, but going after Pure and Frenetic or even Pure and even Extra Pump is probably going to be the best way to get that one set up. And then in gold, we're going to have the Blizzard Smoke, which I do think that smoke looks pretty awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to look on the vehicle. And not only that, that's going to be an epic one as a gold reward, which I do find that to be pretty interesting. But moving over to the next summit is going to be the Dominion Rival Stage 2, giving us the Chrysler 300 SRT8 Crown Edition, which I do think that car looks pretty awesome, and similar to other summits, you will also be able to drive the car in there as well to really test it out, to see if you actually want this vehicle or not, and I do think this summit's going to be pretty fun. We have some street races, hyper, drag, and drift, so this is going to be a pretty fun summit. And then looking at the gold reward, we're going to have the yellow side blade underglow, which is kind of odd looking. Then in silver, we have the legendary half set, which is going to be a loot digger set for the street class, which I can always say is going to be a good set to go after. And then moving over to the next summit is going to be the Frozen Sin, which has one of my favorite hypercars on the cover, the Expo GTX, which also is going to have some parts you can get for it in silver, which I do believe it's just giving you some visual parts for the car that basically you don't have to pay for, which I guess is always a plus there. And then in gold, we're going to have the legendary half set boosted, which would be the other part of the loot digger set for the street class, which I do recommend getting rid of those affixed stats on there once again because they're going to be probably kind of useless. But then in Platinum, we're going to have the Blue Tetra Underglow, which I'm not going to lie, I normally don't use the Underglows all that often, but that one does look pretty dang cool for the most part. Then finally, the next summit, which is going to be the Demons Unleashed, and this is most likely going to be a Halloween-themed summit. Obviously, looking at the Platinum Award, the Halloween Pumpkin Rooftop, which does look pretty funny. Looking forward to seeing how that is going to look on some of the vehicles. Then in gold, we have the Volkswagen Combi Ghost Hunt Edition, which not only does this vehicle look very odd, but it's also going to be pretty dang good in racing, which I always found that to be pretty hilarious because you would never expect that out of this vehicle. And then in silver, we have the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat parts there, which I do believe that's parts already in the game. It's just giving them to you so you do not have to pay for them. And now moving over to the summit here, starting off with the Escape. So for this one, I did decide to use an Alpha GP vehicle because I felt like that would be the best thing to use, because it can actually handle and or doesn't really struggle in some areas, and it can also accelerate very quickly as well. So the KTM Expo R, I would say, is going to be the best option. You guys basically want to go around the objective and then go back that way, and then go as fast as you possibly can, and then also watching out for the pedestrians that are most likely going to get in the way. I notice they can also spawn on some of the turns, which are probably going to ruin the run, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Then moving over to the next event is going to be a slalom, which we have seen a lot in the past, the Miami racetrack. For this one, I did end up using one of the touring bikes, the Ducati Panigale R. I don't know what it is, but I find these to be really fun to use on these slaloms. But if you might have been wondering, you can use any vehicle of your choice on this slalom, guys. You can use a rally raid, a hypercar, a street car. As long as you have the score breaker set on there, you will be good to go on this, which I do think will make these a lot more fun. Then moving over to the next skill is going to be a speed trap. So for this, obviously pick your favorite drag car, and I do want to recommend, by the way, guys, you can only go so fast because this drag car only does like 410 miles an hour. So if you want to go past that, you're going to have to slipstream somebody to get a higher score, but from the looks of it, it doesn't look like you can get a very high score anyway, even if you do slipstream somebody. And then moving over to the first event is going to be a live extreme series, and for this one you will have to use 3 different vehicles. So for me, I did end up running the Ram 1500 Rebel for my rally raid vehicle, and then obviously for the boat I did pick the 1414 Demon. And then for the street class, I did end up running the Ferrari F40, which personally I really haven't used this vehicle all that much, but I'm definitely going to try it out more in the future. This car did a lot better than I thought it was going to do. And then moving over to the hypercar race, you're going to have to use a vehicle that they give you, which is going to be the Koenigsegg 1. And this is also going to be on one of the new Frozen racetracks, so this race is probably going to be very interesting for many players. I personally found this car to be pretty good. The biggest recommendation I can give is to try to slow down a little bit on the turns. I notice if you approach them going too fast, you will most likely not be able to slow down in time because the track is covered in ice, so you're going to be finding yourself sliding all over the place, and you can lose a lot of time on the turns there, so I do recommend being careful with that. And then moving over to the next event here is going to be a touring car event, and you do get to drive the McLaren 12C GT3, which is actually a pretty decent car for the most part, and to my surprise, did a lot better on this event than I thought it was going to do. I might end up going back into some of these frozen racetracks though to see if I can do a little bit better, because I'm not going to lie, I really don't try that hard on these because I don't find these to be all that fun, but I have to admit they're pretty interesting to race around on the ice and seeing how the car might slide around. I might end up jumping back into some of these ice events though to really try them once again, because I'm not going to lie, I'm not the biggest fan of these, but I do find them to be pretty fun to do. But again guys, with this one, the biggest tip I can give is to be careful on the turns. I do feel like that's where you're going to lose the most time. And then moving down to the Rallycross event, I did end up running the Ford Fiesta once again. I really don't know why I run this car so often. But for this is going to be a US Speed Tour event, and I'm not going to lie, this is probably not going to be the best option for this, but the Ford Fiesta is actually a really good car, and I do recommend trying this thing out if you guys have not. The biggest thing with it, though, is you might find yourself sliding a little bit more with this car compared to like the Mitsubishi or the Cadillac. I do believe those cars are still going to remain the best in the Rallycross class, but I do recommend trying out the Fiesta because it's pretty dang good. And then moving over to the touring car event is going to be no restriction, and for this I did end up picking the Koenigsegg CCGT. I really do love how this car drives. Now, is it going to be the fastest option? Compared to the Renault, it's probably going to be a little bit slower with the acceleration, but I love how this car handles, so I'll take that little bit slower of a speed, because I do find the Koenigsegg to be an absolute blast to drive. But luckily guys, and then for the last event, you're going to have to use a Lamborghini Veneno, which this car really isn't all that bad. I did have to tweak it just a little bit, and you will also have to drive this thing in one of these street races as well, which will be the Big Bend. I personally find this race to be really fun because of all the turns, but I do believe there's going to be some cuts in here, which in the footage I pretty much just take the road all the way there, but this race is going to be a pretty good time, and luckily the Lamborghini Veneno is not all that bad as well. But that will basically do it for the Scandinavia flick, guys. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this summit.
you